Hi everyone. Welcome back. We're glad to have you with us today. Let's start. As I drove to work, my mind kept circling back to the conversation Sarah started during dinner last night. It was not the first time she brought it up, but it had been happening more often lately. She asked how many women I had been with before we got together, and if I ever thought about them now. My answer was a definite no. I loved Sarah, and I never let my mind wander to anyone else. We had been married for 5 years, and while our relationship was not perfect, I thought we were in a good place. It had not always been that way. A few months ago, we were fighting constantly, snapping at each other over small things that escalated into bigger arguments. It felt like we were drifting apart, and for a while, I feared it was the beginning of the end. But we worked through it. We made an effort to reconnect, and gradually, things settled down. Lately, it felt like we had found our rhythm again, with a comfortable life and a strong relationship. But something still fell off. Over the past few weeks, Sarah had started coming home late. When she did, she would initiate intimacy with a fiery passion that seemed different from before, more urgent. At first, I did not think much of it, but that nagging feeling would not go away. One night, after an especially intense session, I noticed her underwear was already damp when she undressed. That was when my suspicion started to grow. Sarah is a certified public accountant at a top firm. Her job sometimes requires travel, and lately, she had been working with a younger colleague named Ryan. She mentioned him once after their first trip, saying he was confident and good-looking, but I never heard much about him after that. What I did not know at the time was that Sarah had been spending more time with Ryan outside of work, lunches, happy hours, even dinners. Their conversations had crossed into flirtatious territory, and Sarah found herself drawn to him. The excitement of his attention consumed her thoughts, and she became infatuated with the idea of being with him. In her mind, sleeping with him just once would help her move past the obsession. She convinced herself that if I loved her, I would understand, and that we could move on stronger than before. Sarah believed that one weekend with Ryan would help her get it out of her system. In her mind, it was a temporary escape, a chance to experience something new and then refocus on our marriage. She told herself that if I loved her as much as she knew I did, I would understand and forgive her. After all, I had been with other women before we got together. Why should she not have a similar experience? As I prepared dinner downstairs, I had no idea what Sarah was planning. I was focused on finding a way to address the growing distance I felt between us, hoping to bring us closer again. But for Sarah, the decision had already been made. She was going to spend a weekend with Ryan, and she was still figuring out how to tell me. She smiled softly, but there was a hint of worry in her eyes. Just say what is on your mind, Jake. We love each other, and we can talk about anything. Actually, I need to talk to you too, but you go first. I gave a weak laugh. That sounds a bit ominous. You know how many marriages end with the words, "We need to talk," right? Do not be silly, Jake. This is not something bad. It is something that will be good for me, and in the long run, for you too. That caught me off guard. Good for you? What do you mean? I paused, my mind racing. Something feels off between us lately. You have not been as open and yourself. She waved it off with a smile. Jake, did you forget about the amazing night we had just a few hours ago? That was not me being distant. I looked at her carefully. I'm not talking about that. But, since you mention it, what made you so incredibly worked up tonight that you practically tore my clothes off as soon as you got home? Her expression shifted slightly. There was guilt in her eyes. She quickly grew defensive. If you do not like me being that passionate, maybe the problem is yours, not mine. That hit me wrong. Sarah, come on. I see it in your face. Please, just be honest with me. Is there something I should be worried about? Sarah lowered her gaze and seemed to gather her thoughts. Jake, I am sorry. That came out wrong. I didn't need to talk to you, but you have to remember that I love you. Our life together is so important to me, more than anything else. My heart sank. Now I am really worried. Are you having an affair? Her head snapped up. How could you even say that? You know I would never cheat on you. I respect you too much. She reached across the table, touching my hand. But you need to listen to me all the way through. Do not react until I am done, okay? I love you, and I want only you. I want to have kids and grow old with you. Okay, I said slowly. What is this about, then? Sarah took a shaky breath. Do you remember Ryan, my co-worker I traveled with? My heart started pounding. Yeah, what about him? I have been having lunch with him sometimes, and we have gone to happy hours after work. I even had dinner with him last week. What the hell, Sarah? You said you were not having an affair. I am not having an affair, she insisted. I have not cheated on you. But maybe I crossed a line by not telling you about it. I stared at her, waiting for more. I do not love him, she continued, but we have been flirting. It started out innocent, but it crossed into something more suggestive. He told me he wants to sleep with me. Her voice grew quieter, and I found myself wanting that too. I shot up from my chair, knocking it back. Are you serious right now? You're telling me this like it is some casual thing? You are attracted to another man and thinking about sleeping with him? Sarah winced at my reaction. Hake? No, it is not what you think. I have not slept with him, and I will not lie to you. But this is about me, not you. It is about something I've been wrestling with for a long time. I ran a hand over my face, trying to keep calm. You need to explain this better because right now, all I am hearing is that you want to cheat on me. Sarah stood up and walked toward me, her expression pleading. Jake, I love you. I love only you. But you know I did not have many experiences before we got together. I sometimes feel like I missed out on that part of life. Exploring, figuring out who I was, having those experiences. You feel like you missed out? My voice shook with anger. So you want a free pass to do what? Sleep with Ryan and come back home like nothing happened? Sarah flinched, but did not back down. I know how it sounds, but yes, I need to do this once to get it out of my system. I have thought about it for weeks, and I am not asking to hurt you. I am asking you to understand. You had your experiences before we got serious, and I never had that chance. This is not about love or emotion. It is just one time, Jake. My legs gave out, and I slumped back into my chair. I felt tears building in my eyes, sliding down my cheeks before I could stop them. You have made up your mind, haven't you? Sarah looked heartbroken seeing me like that, but she pressed on. I swear, Jake, I will make it up to you for the rest of our lives. This will not hurt us. It is just one weekend, just one night with him to get it out of my system. I will come back to you, more committed than ever. We will be stronger for it. I shook my head slowly, unable to process what I was hearing. You want me to approve you sleeping with another man, and you think that will make us stronger? Do you even hear yourself? She nodded, tears forming in her own eyes. I love you, Jake. I want to grow old with you. I just need this one thing to make peace with myself. It is not about love. It is not about cheating. It is just about me. If you let me do this just once, I swear I will never cheat on you. That is why I am asking, for you to give me this as a gift, to show how much you love me, Sarah said, her voice calm, but her eyes begging for understanding. I pushed back from the table, staring at her in disbelief. My chest felt tight with anger and pain. A gift? You want me to approve you sleeping with another man? And that is supposed to prove I love you? Do you even hear how insane that sounds? Jake, it is not what you think, she said, shaking her head. It is not about love or betrayal. It is just something I need to do for myself. You already cheated on me, Sarah. You build an emotional connection with this guy, shared time, closeness, even physical touches. How is that not cheating? Are you sure you have not slept with him already? My voice was cold, steady. She looked away, guilt written all over her face. I told you I have not slept with him, but I kissed him a few times after drinks. It was the thrill of something different, Jake. That is all it was. The room went quiet for a moment as I processed her words. You kissed him, I repeated, feeling the weight of her confession. You think that is no big deal? It was just a kiss. It does not mean anything, she said softly. I will never love him. I love you, Jake, but I cannot stop thinking about this. I feel like I missed out on something before we got married. You had your experiences. I never did. So what? You think you deserve a free pass now? I asked, standing up, and then you expect me to just be fine with it? It is not a free pass. It is just one time, one weekend to get it out of my system, she insisted. After that, I will be completely committed to you. I swear I will make it up to you. This will help me move past it. You are asking me to let you sleep with someone else, I said, my voice trembling with hurt. Do you even realize how much you are asking of me? I would never hurt you like this. I know you would not, Jake, but that is why I thought you would understand. You love me, and I love you. This is not about our marriage. It is about me needing to close a chapter of my life, I never got to experience. I shook my head slowly. You do not get it. You already crossed the line. You kissed him, and now you want more. How can you not see how much you have hurt me? Jake, stop being so dramatic, she said, frustrated. You can trust me. This is just about me. It will not change anything between us. Trust you. I laughed bitterly. You are asking me to approve you cheating. That is not trust. It is not cheating if you agree to it, she argued. It is just sex. Nothing more. I grabbed my keys and walked toward the door. If you go through with this, we are done. Jake, come on, she shouted after me. We can get past this. I stopped at the doorway and turned to look at her. If you love me like you say you do, you would never have asked this of me. Without waiting for a response, I walked out. Sarah stood in the kitchen, stunned. She had never seen me so hurt, so angry. She had convinced herself that I would understand, that we would be stronger after this. But now she felt the cracks forming in our relationship. She sat down, running her hands through her hair. Why can he not see this will not hurt us? It is just one weekend. It will not change how much I love him. But deep down, she knew that was a lie. Things had already changed. I had never walked out on her before, never questioned her love. Now she was questioning everything. Still, she convinced herself it would be fine. She had already made plans to meet Ryan for brunch on Saturday and spend the night at the Hilton. She believed that once the weekend was over, she would come back more committed than ever. Jake would forgive her eventually. Hours passed with no word from me. As the night wore on, Sarah began to worry. She tried calling my phone, but I did not answer. She left a voicemail. Jake, please do not be upset. I love you and want to be with you forever. This is about me getting something I missed out on. Please come home. She climbed into bed, but could not sleep. She kept checking her phone, hoping for a text or a missed call, but there was nothing. Meanwhile, I drove aimlessly before checking into a hotel in the next town. I spent hours at the bar, drowning my thoughts in whiskey. The idea that Sarah thought I would be okay with her sleeping with someone else made my stomach turn. How could she believe that and still claim to love me? When I finally stumbled into bed, I could not sleep. Even if I stopped her from going through with it, would she eventually do it behind my back? The trust was already broken. If I agreed, I would never feel the same about her again. And if I stood my ground, would she resent me for it? There were no good options. Either way, it felt like the end of our marriage. I knew this could be the beginning of the end. My only hope was to talk Sarah out of it and convince her to go to counseling to figure out why she felt the need to risk everything we had built together. On Wednesday morning, Sarah woke up and reached over to cuddle me. She froze when she realized the bed next to her was untouched. She checked the guest room and the couch, but I was nowhere to be found. Her heart sank when she saw my car was gone. Panic turned into frustration when she realized there were no texts or calls from me. She picked up her phone and dialed. No answer. Minutes later, a text came through. Sarah, I'll be home at 7 p.m. tonight. Please eat before I get there. We need to have a serious discussion about our future. Her stomach dropped. Future? Was I saying there might not be one for us? At first, she rolled her eyes, telling herself I was being dramatic. But as the hours passed, her irritation turned to fear. The last thing she wanted was to lose me. She loved me, and now she realized she would need to fight to make me understand. When she got to work, Ryan approached her almost immediately. Good morning, beautiful, he said with a smirk. You look good enough to kiss. Are we still on for Saturday? Did you talk to your husband? Should I be worried? Sarah gave a forced smile. Do not worry about Jake. I will handle him. He is upset, but he will be fine. Ryan grinned. I cannot wait. After he left, Sarah pulled out her phone and texted me again. Jake, are you okay? Please know that I love you and only want you. Our future will be better and better. I promise. An hour later, I replied, yes, sure. The sarcasm in my response was obvious. Sarah frowned, annoyed by what she thought was childish behavior. But deep down, she felt guilty. She hated seeing me hurt. Still, she convinced herself it would all blow over. She believed that after the weekend, things would return to normal. Maybe even better. I took the day off work, unable to focus on anything but my crumbling marriage. After Sarah left for the office, I drove home and threw myself into finishing the RV. I mounted the solar panel, set up the Wi-Fi, and installed a new toilet. The physical work distracted me from the emotional pain, but only for a while. By mid-afternoon, with a couple of hours before Sarah would be home, I sat down to face the harsh reality. I started researching divorce attorneys and financial arrangements. I made a list of what I would need to take with me if this all fell apart. Then I headed to the bank. I canceled our joint credit cards and opened new accounts in my name. I transferred half of our savings into my account and prepaid the mortgage for 2 months to make sure Sarah would not be left scrambling. After I was done, I stopped at a local pub for a beer and a burger, trying to prepare myself for the difficult conversation ahead. When Sarah came home that evening, she immediately noticed the house was empty. She made a quick sandwich, waiting anxiously for me to return. Her thoughts raced as she tried to figure out how to approach me without making things worse. When I finally walked through the door, she rushed to me, wrapping her arms around me in a tight hug. "Jake, do not ever leave like that again." I was so worried. I stood stiff, not returning the hug. "You knew I was hurting Sarah, and you still went ahead with this?" "I love you, Jake. We are solid. We always will be," she said softly, stepping back to look at me. I shook my head, my voice heavy with emotion. "A week ago, I would have believed that. But now, you're asking me to approve you sleeping with someone else. How can you say you love me and ask for something like that?" "It is not an affair," she snapped. "It is just sex. One time. It does not mean anything. Stop being so dramatic." "Dramatic?" I laughed bitterly. "You want to spend a weekend with another man, then come back like nothing happened. You think that will not change things? How would you feel if I did the same?" Sarah folded her arms, her frustration boiling over. "Jake, you had dozens of women before we met. I never had that chance. So that makes it okay? You think that gives you a free pass? If you went out and did it now, I would kick you out." "I'm not saying I would be okay with it," she admitted, tears welling in her eyes. "But it is different for me. I never got to explore that part of my life. And you think I should forgive you for that?" I asked, my voice rising. "Why should I be any different?" "Because I cannot live without you," Sarah cried. "I love you. I need you." I shook my head, my heart breaking. "You would not be asking this if you really loved me. Have you already agreed to meet him?" She looked away, guilt flashing across her face. "Yes, Saturday. He is picking me up, and I will be back Sunday." "You stay here? Stunt. And you expect me to just sit here and wait for you?" "I will come back the best wife you could ever hope for," she promised. "Better than ever." "You already were," I whispered. "But if you go through with this, you never will be again." Sarah gasped, tears spilling down her cheeks. She backed into the kitchen and sank into a chair, her voice breaking as she pleaded, "Jake, please. Do not say that. Do not let this destroy us." "If that were true, you would not be planning to go through with this on Saturday." I shot back, barely able to keep my emotions in check. "This conversation is going nowhere. If you go through with it, we are done." Her eyes filled with panic. "Jake, please do not walk out again. We need to get through this together." I shook my head. "I'll be back Friday night. We will have dinner, and you can give me your final answer. But think hard about it. If you want to sleep with other people, just ask for a divorce. I will never be okay with this." "Jake, do not give me ultimatums," Sarah snapped. "We will be fine, better, even after this. You will see." "You're right. Pigs will fly," I said bitterly as I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. I turned off the voice recorder I had been using to document the conversation and headed straight to the Hilton, booking a room for Wednesday and Thursday night. I called my boss, claiming a family emergency and requesting the rest of the week off. He agreed, reluctantly, without pressing for details. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, slumped over in silence after I left. She could not believe how stubborn I was being. She had been so sure that I would never leave her, that I loved her too much to walk away. But now she wondered if the damage had already been done, if our marriage was beyond repair. Would going through with her plan make things worse? Probably, but she felt trapped, already committed to it. Her thoughts raced as she got ready for bed. Jake was her world, and she knew she was causing both of us immense pain. Did she really need this? Or was she letting an obsession destroy everything? Still, she convinced herself that I was being unreasonable. I had dozens of women before me, she thought bitterly. He has those memories to fall back on. I have nothing. This is just one time. He will get over it. He has to. On Thursday morning, after Sarah left for work, I returned to the house and began quietly packing up my belongings. I took things she would not miss: tools, sports equipment, recreational gear. I dropped some old clothes off at the thrift store and headed to my best friend Tom's house with a couple of my late uncle's pen-and-ink drawings, knowing Tom would appreciate them. We sat down for a beer, and I finally let it all out. "Tom, I do not know what to do. Sarah wants to sleep with someone else. She says it is just sex, that it will help our marriage somehow." Tom stared at me, incredulous. "Jake, you've got to be kidding. No way would Sarah do that to you. Are you sure about this?" I shook my head, exhausted. I'm not sure of anything anymore. My whole world has been turned upside down in a week. It is like she is a different person. I do not get it. I love her more than anything, but every excuse she gives makes me feel like our relationship is dying. Tom took a long sip of his beer. "You cannot forgive her? Try counseling?" I offered. I told her we could go to counseling if she dropped the idea. But if she does this, I do not see any way back. How could I ever trust her again? Tom sighed heavily. "So what is your plan?" I exhaled slowly. "I'm going to see if I can change her mind on Friday night. I will make dinner, and we will have one last night together. I will try to remind her of what we have, how good we are together. Maybe I can talk some sense into her. It is my last chance. Good luck, man. Let me know if you need anything." He chuckled softly. "Not with the physical part, but if you need someone to help you get through this, I am here." I smiled faintly. "Thanks, Tom. I just hate that we are even having this conversation. You always looked up to our marriage. Now it feels like we have both been living a lie." Tom shook his head. "I still look up to you, Jake. You are handling this better than most would. I would have already beaten the hell out of that guy." I laughed bitterly. "Trust me, it has crossed my mind." Tom leaned in. "If it ever comes to that, you know I'll back you up. Just say the word." We shared a quiet moment before I stood to leave. "Take care, bud. I'm getting a new phone and number tomorrow. I will text it to you when it is set up. Keep calm, Jake. You are stronger than you think." The next morning, I went to Verizon and got a new phone and number, removing myself from our shared plan and leaving it in Sarah's name. I took the RV for a test drive, making sure all the new systems were working. Everything was in place: the solar panels, the Wi-Fi, the cabinetry. I was ready to go, whether Sarah stayed or not. As I drove back, my mind wandered to Friday night's dinner. This is it, I thought. If she still plans to go through with it, we are done. I spent most of Thursday moving personal documents and emails off the shared computer, essentially wiping away any trace of my old life. I composed an email to family, friends, and coworkers, explaining what Sarah was planning and my response. If I could not talk her out of it, I wanted people to understand the truth, that she chose to have an affair despite knowing it would end our marriage. I prayed I would not have to send it, but just in case, I attached the voice recording from our earlier conversation. On Friday, I consulted a divorce lawyer. He told me that, with no kids and similar incomes, everything would be split 50-50. The only question was whether Sarah would be entitled to half of my 401k, which had grown substantially. She had a defined pension plan that complicated the process. I decided that if it came to divorce, I would withdraw my retirement savings early, even if it meant taking a tax hit. Better to lose 40% to the government than half to a cheating spouse. Still, I held out hope that I could convince her to change her mind before the weekend. As Friday approached, I felt the weight of our future and my love for her resting entirely in her hands. That evening, I bought fresh shrimp, swordfish, and a Caesar salad. I started the grill, put white wine on ice, and mixed up gin and tonics. When Sarah walked in, her face lit up at the sight of me cooking. "Thank God you came home, Jake," she said, rushing to hug me. "I missed you so much. Promise me you will not leave like that again. We need to be together. We love each other." I held her close and gave her a long, tender kiss. "Why do you not take a shower and put on something special? Bring your drink down with you when you are ready. I will grill the food, and we can enjoy dinner together." Sarah frowned. "Jake, stop talking like this is our last night together. You are upsetting me. I have told you over and over, I love only you. This is not about you. It is something I need to get out of my system." I sighed. "Let us drop it for now. Go take your shower, enjoy your drink, and let us have a nice dinner." She nodded slowly. "Okay, But promise me you will stay with me tonight. Do not leave again. I will not go anywhere. Just be with me tonight." Sarah smiled and went upstairs to shower. When she came back down, I gasped. She had put on a sexy French maid outfit, complete with a little white cap, a tight blouse that showed off her curves, thigh-high silk stockings, and heels. "My God, Sarah, you look amazing." She grinned, walking toward me with a playful sway. "This is just a preview. I bought a few more outfits for you to enjoy over the next few weeks." I try to stay composed. "Let us grill the food first. I am hungry." She winked. "I am hungry too, but not just for dinner." We hurried through our meal, finishing the gin and tonics and most of the first bottle of wine. I could not wait any longer. I picked her up, carried her upstairs, and laid her gently on the bed. As she reached for my belt, I stopped her. "Tonight is about you, Sarah. I'm going to worship your body and remind you why we belong to each other." She smiled, her eyes softening. "We do belong to each other, Jake. That will never change. Please just make love to me. Let us move past the stress of this week." We made love that night, slow and passionate. I put everything I had into showing her how much I loved her. When we were done, she sighed with satisfaction and drifted off to sleep. Sarah woke at 8:30 the next morning, the day of her planned weekend with Ryan. She felt a strange mix of emotions, guilt, anxiety, and excitement. The memory of our night together made her pause for a moment. "What am I doing? How could anything be better than last night?" But the thought quickly passed. She had already committed to seeing Ryan. She got up, put on her robe, and went downstairs. The smell of bacon and coffee filled the kitchen. "Good morning," she said, giving me a warm smile. "Last night was incredible, Jake. That is what I see in our future." "Thank you. I love you so much." I did not respond. I simply finished cooking and asked, "Do you want some eggs?" Sarah shook her head. "I better not. Andrew and I are going out for brunch." She paused, seeing the pain in my eyes. "Jake, please stay. Let me hug and kiss you goodbye." I put the spatula down and looked at her, exhausted. "I will not beg you anymore, Sarah. I will just ask one last time. Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to sleep with a man who is not your husband?" Her expression hardened. "Jake, stop. It is just one time. It does not change how I feel about you. I love you." I stared at her, my heart breaking all over again. "I will stay until you leave. I want to say goodbye." Sarah flinched at my words, sensing the finality. Tears filled her eyes. "Jake, do not say goodbye. You will see. We will be okay. We will be stronger after this." I shook my head slowly. "It is incredibly sad that you actually believe that." Her face flushed with emotion, and she ran to the bathroom, tears spilling down her cheeks. Why can he not get past this? She thought. It is just one weekend. I will make it up to him. I always do. He loves me. He will forgive me. Sarah showered, applied her makeup carefully, and dressed in a sleek, tasteful dress with thigh-high stockings and heels. She grabbed her weekend bag and came down the stairs, ready to leave. When I saw her standing there, dressed for another man, it felt like a knife to my chest. "Jake," she said softly, "you are okay, right? You know I love you." "You do not love me," I said quietly. Last night was supposed to show how great our life could be, how we could get through this together. Sarah shook her head. "Jake, last night was special. It was a celebration of us. Why are you acting like it was our last night together? That is cruel." "Because it might be," I said, my voice breaking. "You chose a weekend of meaningless sex over your husband." "Stop it, Jake," she snapped, frustration flaring. "This is not about us. It is something I need to get out of my system. You had your fun before we met, and I never did. I need this. It does not change how I feel about you." Before I could respond, a car honked outside. "Stop the drama," Sarah said, grabbing her bag. "I will be back Sunday night, and we will be fine. You are my only love, my life partner." The horn honked again, and she glanced toward the door. "Do you want to meet Andrew so you see he's just some kid? Nothing to worry about. Il clair de here. If he steps inside, I will break his jaw and enjoy his screams." Sarah shrank back. "Please, Jake, let me have this just once. I will come back, and we will be better than ever." She smiled faintly, blew me a kiss, and said, "Sunday night and beyond, I will be the best wife you could ever hope for." She walked out, closing the door behind her. I stood frozen for a moment before collapsing into a chair. I cried for half an hour, knowing I had done everything I could to prevent this. But it was clear she had convinced herself this was somehow necessary, and that it would make our marriage stronger. When I finally got up, my sorrow was replaced with growing anger. I packed my belongings into the RV, making sure to take everything important to me. As I walked through the house, my eyes fell on our wedding album. What once brought me joy now felt like a knife to the heart. Without thinking, I grabbed a box cutter from the garage. I slashed through several photos, cutting out our faces and throwing them into the fireplace. I watched the pieces curl and blacken in the flames, my tears falling as I stood there. Afterward, I sat at the desk and wrote a final letter to Sarah. My hand trembled as I scrawled the words, tears staining the paper. I placed the letter in an envelope along with a check for half of our joint accounts. On the kitchen table, I left the letter, the check, the photo album, and my wedding ring. I scheduled an email to our family and friends for Monday morning, explaining what had happened. I wanted people to know the truth. I was not the one who destroyed our marriage. Sarah had made her choice. By the time I got into the RV and drove away from the house, it was Saturday afternoon. My old life was behind me. Meanwhile, Sarah and Andrew had finished brunch and checked into the hotel. She felt a mix of excitement and guilt as they undressed. Seeing another man aroused was thrilling, but it felt strange. Andrew kissed her a few times before eagerly moving to the bed. He climbed on top of her immediately, but Sarah stopped him. "Relax, Andrew. We have all weekend. Why do you not go down on me first?" Andrew pulled back, looking disgusted. "I do not do that. It is kind of gross. Here, let me warm you up." He jammed his fingers into her roughly, making her wince. After a few uncomfortable minutes, he climbed on top in the missionary position. It lasted 2 minutes before he grunted, "I am about to finish. Do it with me, Sarah." With that, he was done. He rolled off her and laid back on the bed, satisfied. Sarah lay there stunned. She had barely felt anything, let alone reached a climax. Andrew got up, stretched, and went to the bathroom. "I will bring you a washcloth," he called over his shoulder. Sarah turned away, biting her lip. "What am I doing?" she thought. "What did I give up for this?" She felt sick thinking about the pain she had caused Jake. For what? Something that was turning out to be far more meaningless than she expected. She grabbed her phone and quickly typed out a message. "Jake, my love, please know I love only you. Please tell me you are okay. I need to hear from you." Andrew came back, ready to go again. Being young, his stamina was impressive. They had sex 3 more times that afternoon. It was only during the 3rd round that Sarah finally climaxed, by focusing on her own effort, not because of Andrew's skills. Afterward, they got dressed and went out to dinner. The meal was awkward, filled with small talk and silences. Sarah felt empty inside, wondering if she had ruined everything for a fling that was not even worth it. There was no connection, physically or emotionally, between Sarah and Ryan. The magic she thought she had felt before was gone. After dinner, they danced, but it felt awkward, like dancing with a distant relative. The attraction she had convinced herself was so strong had vanished. Ryan, eager to return to the hotel room, kept suggesting they head back, but Sarah kept ordering drinks, putting him off until they were both very drunk. When they finally stumbled back to the room, Sarah stripped off her clothes, collapsed onto the bed, and turned away from Ryan without a word, falling asleep instantly. The next morning, Sarah woke up with a pounding headache and the sound of Ryan snoring beside her. She stared at the ceiling, the regret already sinking in. "What have I done?" she thought. Still, she convinced herself the damage was done, so she might as well try to salvage the experience. Determined to make it worthwhile, she leaned over to give Ryan a morning blowjob, hoping it might lead to something memorable. Instead, Ryan climaxed without warning, leaving Sarah in shock and disgust as she recoiled and spit it out, wiping her mouth furiously. Ryan sat up, grinning. "Wow, that was amazing. I haven't done that in years. I didn't realize I was that close." "Thanks, Sarah." She stared at him in disbelief. "You jerk. What the hell is wrong with you? You didn't even warn me. That was disgusting." Ryan looked confused. "What's your problem? You started it. I thought that's what you wanted." Sarah screamed. "You have no clue, do you? You're an immature, selfish idiot." She stormed into the bathroom, slammed the door, and locked it. Glaring at herself in the mirror, she muttered, "What have I done?" She brushed her teeth vigorously, rinsed her mouth, and took the hottest shower she could stand, scrubbing her skin like she could wash away the weekend and her terrible decisions. As she stood under the water, tears mixed with the shower stream. "I destroyed my marriage. I destroyed the man I love. How could I be so selfish and stupid?" After drying off, she checked her phone. There were no responses from Jake to her earlier texts. She tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. She quickly sent another message. "Jake, I love you. Are you okay? Please tell me you're okay. This weekend has been a meaningless, miserable mistake. I only want you. I'll be home soon to hug you and tell you how much I love you. Please answer me." She dressed in silence, putting on her makeup carefully to hide the guilt on her face. When she unlocked the bathroom door, Ryan was still sitting on the bed, naked. "Sarah, what's up? Ready for round 2? She shook her head, grabbing her bag. "No, Ryan. This was a mistake. I love my husband, and this weekend has made me realize no one compares to him. I'm leaving. I'll get a cab. I don't want to see you at work anymore, and I certainly don't want to hear from you." Ryan's grin faded. "Seriously? You begged for this, and now you're bailing? Fine, go ahead. Run back to your husband and pretend you didn't love what we did." Sarah rolled her eyes, glaring at him. "Love? You're a clueless boy. You wouldn't know how to please a woman if your life depended on it. Goodbye, Ryan." She stormed out, grabbed a cab, and headed home. Sarah arrived back at the house around 3 p.m. on Sunday. As soon as she pulled into the driveway, she noticed the RV was gone. He must have taken it for a test drive, she thought. Maybe he went on an overnight trip. I wish I'd been here for the first trip. But as she stepped inside, a chill ran down her spine. Something felt different. The first thing she noticed was that the oil painting of the crashing waves, one of Jake's favorites, was missing from above the fireplace. She looked around, realizing that many of his other sketches, paintings, and sculptures were gone too. Panic set in. "Jake? Jake, are you home?" she called, her voice trembling. There was no answer. She pulled out her phone again and saw no new messages. She dialed Jake's number, but instead of ringing, she heard a robotic voice. "This number is no longer in service." Her phone slipped from her hand as a scream tore from her throat. She sank to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. "Oh God, no. What have I done? Jake, please no. How could you leave me like this?" After a few minutes, she forced herself to get up, wiping her tears as best she could. She walked to the kitchen, hoping to find some sign of Jake still being there. What she saw made her knees buckle. On the kitchen table sat their wedding album, Jake's wedding ring resting on top. Beside it was a letter with her name written in Jake's handwriting. Her hands shaking, Sarah sat down, picked up the letter, and opened it with tears streaming down her face. Tears streamed down her face as she ripped open the envelope and unfolded the letter, her sobs growing louder with every word she read. "Sarah, as you can guess, this is my final goodbye. Maybe it makes me a coward, but I could not face you after you walked out on me and our marriage. I found your wedding rings in the bowl on your dresser. That symbolized everything. You were abandoning our vows. You knew that wearing the ring would mean acknowledging your betrayal, and leaving it behind allowed you to pretend it was just a harmless weekend. But it was not harmless to me. It meant everything. I cannot understand how you thought it would be okay to sleep with someone else and return like nothing had changed. You broke our vows and humiliated me. Yet you convinced yourself it was something you deserved. You hurt me more than anyone ever has. You took my love and crushed it. You cheated the moment you started flirting with him. You sealed it with kisses, and you destroyed it when you assumed I would be fine with you having an affair. How could you ever think that if I loved you, I would accept that? I tried to stop you. I warned you that our love and marriage could never be the same if you went through with it. I offered counseling to fix us before it was too late, but you dismissed me. You called me immature, dramatic, and selfish. You assumed I would be waiting when you came back. But you were wrong. I cannot be in a relationship without trust, and mine is completely shattered. I cannot love you again. Knowing every time you leave the house, I would wonder if you were thinking about someone else. You destroyed everything we built when you walked out that door. I cannot forgive you. I cannot trust you. And I cannot be your friend. This is goodbye. I am cutting you out of my life the same way you ripped my heart out when you left. I have split our assets. Enclosed is a check for your half of our joint accounts. The house is yours now. I signed a quitclaim deed. I have canceled our Verizon account, insurance policies, and credit cards. You will need to set up your own. I sold my car and left in the RV. I will pawn your wedding rings for gas money. In my anger, I took a box cutter to our wedding album. The pieces are in the fireplace. Burn them. It is a fitting end to our marriage. I have also scheduled an email to go out Monday morning to friends and family. They will know the truth, that you chose to have an affair despite knowing it would destroy us. I hope you find whatever you are looking for, Sarah. Goodbye, Jake. Sarah clutched the letter to her chest, wailing uncontrollably. What have I done? She whispered through sobs. Her mind raced as she processed every word, every painful truth that Jake had laid bare. She glanced at the fireplace and saw the torn photos from their wedding album. Her heart broke as she realized he had destroyed not just their photos, but everything they had built together. Sarah grabbed her phone and tried calling Jake again. But all she got was the same message. This number is no longer in service. She collapsed on the floor, clutching the phone to her chest. Oh God, no! Jake, please come back. Please. But deep down, she knew it was too late. After I left the house that day, I drove aimlessly, unsure of where I was going or what I would do next. I ended up on the banks of the Mississippi, staring at the water, lost in thought. The river stretched endlessly, and I decided to follow it. I would drive from Minneapolis all the way down to New Orleans, letting the long hours behind the wheel help me process everything. I could not stop thinking about Sarah. No matter how hard I tried, memories of her kept flooding my mind. Her smile, her laugh, the way she used to look at me with love in her eyes. But those memories only brought more pain. How could she have thrown it all away? How could she look me in the eye, tell me she loved me, and still walk out to be with another man? I told myself I would not make any decisions for weeks, maybe months. I needed time to clear my head. But deep down, I knew the truth. I gave our reconciliation less than a 25% chance. The damage was too deep. The betrayal too severe. I could not even imagine being friends with her again, let alone partners. Still, a small part of me wondered, what if? What if I calmed down? What if I reached out? But the hurt ran too deep. I doubted I ever could. I later heard what Sarah went through after I left. She had to face her family and friends, explain her actions, and endure the humiliation of their judgment. They were shocked. No one understood why she did what she did, and neither did she. From what I heard, she told them all the same thing. I thought it wouldn't change anything. I thought Jake would forgive me. But she knew better now. She knew that everything she told herself before the affair was a lie. She had destroyed our marriage, our friendship, and the respect we once shared. Her parents were devastated. Her friends distanced themselves. Even her coworkers whispered behind her back. And she deserved every bit of it. I learned through mutual friends that Sarah had started calling my best friend Tom, begging him to pass messages along to me. Every week, she would leave a voicemail. Please, Tom, tell Jake I love him. Tell him I've taken responsibility for what I did. I'll do anything to make it right. I won't divorce him. I'll wait for him. I won't see anyone else while we're still married. Please just tell him that. Tom never passed the messages on. He told me about them later, but by then, I did not care to hear them. I had made my choice. I was gone. Weeks turned into months. Sarah stopped going out. She led a lonely, quiet life, waiting and hoping that I would return. But I never did. About a month after Sarah's affair, I heard about what happened to Andrew. One night his doorbell rang. When he answered, he was greeted by a man in a ski mask holding a police baton. Without a word, the man struck Andrew twice in the head and neck, sending him to the floor. He kicked him several times in the groin, making sure Andrew felt every bit of pain he deserved. As Andrew lay gasping, the man leaned down and said coldly, "Never mess with married women." Then he walked away, leaving Andrew bruised and broken. I never asked who did it, and I never cared to find out. 3 years passed. Sarah remained faithful to me, or so I was told. She never dated anyone else. She stopped going out with friends. She focused on work and led a lonely life, clinging to the hope that one day I would come back. But I never did. Then, one morning, as she was leaving for work, a man approached her front door. "Are you Sarah?" he asked. Yes, she replied cautiously. The man handed her an envelope. You've been served. Sarah stood frozen, staring at the envelope. Slowly, she opened it and read the contents inside. It was a divorce filing from me. She did not cry. She did not scream. She just stood there in silence, holding the papers. After a long pause, she let out a small, sad smile. All the best, Jake, she whispered. I hope you have a wonderful life. Then she turned, closed the door behind her, and walked back into her empty house. And that was the end. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you soon.